three newspapers. Let me fix this real quick. You might hear some noise outside. I apologize. You might hear the air vent, the air conditioning start. Those are things that unfortunately I cannot control. So I'm going to try to make this soothing for you. So I'm getting jammed with or attacked by newspapers every single day, and I have little time to read it all. So I'm going to probably be reading newspapers old from previous dates, but of course this is really not to inform you so much as it is to relax you. So let's start. Let me take a look at the dates here. I'm going to start with July 15th. That was Wednesday, and that's a very special day because that's my favorite person's birthday. Well, I got favorite people. Two of them are my kids, and I have more favorite people, but this favorite person is very special to me. Very, very, very special. I love him. Well, I love my kids too, and I love my parents, and I love my sister and my nieces and nephews, but I love this guy. He is, I don't know, he's very, very special to me. Okay, so once again, I'm going to, there goes the fan, the air. I'm going to try to find an interesting or positive note here. Okay, so we're going to be flipping for a little while, and don't mind the mess, please. Let's focus on this. It's hard. Okay, so this is the Wall Street Journal, and this is the I don't know what this section is called. I guess the main section. I'm not sure. So something here I'm not going to read, but it says scientist cheer probes close encounter with Pluto. So they're getting close to Pluto. soothing note by any means, but it's actually very unfortunate to, well, it's very unfortunate, but I really want to talk about it. I hope you don't mind. It is something, it does interest me. If it does not interest you, please tell me. But I do. I do want to read this note. It's not about, it should not be about deaths or any nuclear weapons or nuclear wars or anything like that. It shouldn't be about anything like that. And I say it should not be because I haven't read it. But it's something very unfortunate to the Mexican government, to the Mexican people, to some. I know others support it, but to me it's actually very intriguing. So if you could please allow me to read this, it might be interesting. But it is, like I said, unfortunate to the world, I guess. It says, escape sets back Mexico head. Again, escape sets back Mexico head. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto Center attended a wreath-laying ceremony on the tomb of the unknown soldier in Paris on Tuesday. Well, that's not what this is about, okay? It's just showing the president, Peña Nieto, who is currently the president of Mexico, at this ceremony in Paris. So he flew to Paris, okay? He flew to Paris while this is, what I'm about to read is happening. It says, jailbreak by top drug lord deepens woes for Peña Nieto after a string of negative news, by Juan Montes. So the writer is Juan Montes. So he reads, as Mexico's top drug lord snuck into his cell's shower area to escape from a maximum security prison on Saturday, and that was last Saturday, okay, Saturday, July 11th, yeah, okay, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto and his top aides were flying to France for a state visit. Mr. Peña Nieto immediately dispatched his interior minister back to Mexico to direct the search for the drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. But Mr. Peña Nieto has stayed in Paris along with a delegation of some 400 officials and business leaders, arguing the state visit is too important to cancel and will help drum up French investment in Mexico. Many Mexicans agree the timing of the state visit was simply bad luck, but they also say it symbolized a growing perception that the former state governor is out of touch, a leader with movie star look who seemingly cares more about pomp and circumstance, pomp, P-O-M-P, and circumstance than the daily grind of governing. It never rains, but it pours for President Peña Nieto, said Soledad Loaesa, a political scientist at El Colegio de Mexico University. This government clearly has a problem of incompetence or corruption, or maybe both. The imagery surrounding the 4-day visit hasn't helped. On Tuesday, while soldiers and police back in Mexico scrambled to try to find the drug lord, the president reviewed Mexican troops on hand in Paris to help commemorate the French Revolution on Bastille Day. Later in the day, he hosted a gastronomy exhibit aimed at highlighting Mexican high cuisine. The Guzman escape caps a stunning turnaround for a president who enjoyed a run of successes early in his term, but has struggled recently with a raft of corruption scandals, a weak economy, and growing security issues, including last year's massacre of 43 college students. To many Mexicans, the sentiment oscillated between indignation, unbelief, and even humor. This government is making an utter fool of itself, said Blanca Delgado, a 32-year-old lawyer in Mexico City. This is a tragic. Sometimes all you can do is laughing to keep yourself from crying. Before the escape, Mr. Peña Nieto's approval rating was already at a record low, with almost 60% of Mexicans saying they disapproved of his government. There have been no new polls since the drug lord's escape, but pollsters said his rating is sure to take a hit. The government is offering a reward of about $3.8 million for information that leads to the capture of the country's most wanted man. A manhunt across several states involving thousands of soldiers and police agents is underway. A career politician, Mr. Peña Nieto brought Mexico's former ruling party back to power in 2012 after 12 years under the pro-business National Action Party. During his first year and a half in office, his administration ended 15 years of gridlock and passed a raft of historic overhauls to Mexico's economy, including opening the oil industry to the outside world, something that 4 previous presidents had failed to accomplish. Mexico's soaring homicide rate started to fall, and the capture of Mr. Guzman, who had eluded 2 successive administrations in early 2014, seemed to project the image of an administration in control. By September, Mr. Peña Nieto announced the building of a new Mexico City airport, what would be the crown jewel of his legacy. The state visit to France was the second so far this year, after a week-long state visit to the UK, which drew criticism at home for the cease of the official delegation. I'm not going to comment on this. There is so much controversy going on. I just wanted to be informed. point or another, have been immigrants of any country. Doesn't necessarily have to be immigrants from Latin America to the United States. Immigrants from other parts of the world to another part of the world. It says the mythical connection between immigrants and crime by Jason L. Riley. Is a conversation of the Republicans. Do I really want to do this? I'll just read this little note. Newcomers to the U.S. are less likely than the native population to commit violent crimes or be incarcerated. That's all I'm reading. It is interesting, but then it will go into this whole ordeal of controversy, and I don't want that. There's plenty of opinions out there. Okay, so that was the main part. This is the business and tech section. Let's see. Free Wi-Fi reaches Mount Fuji in Japan. Free Wi-Fi has reached a peak in Japan, the nation's highest peak in fact. Oh. Okay. So that was the business. This is money and investing. honey. This is personal journal. Mm. This would be interesting. Yeah, let's read this. It says, bad day, don't bring it home. It shows a happy couple. And it's just another happy couple. So I'm guessing, like, if they're having a bad day at work, don't come home and be all upset at your spouse. This is by Sue Schellenberger. It says, it is awful to see your spouse under stress at work. It is worse still to have to hear about it every night. Partners want to be able to talk and hear about each other's work lives, but complaining about problems at work can morph into a rant, robbing a partner of rest and relaxation. Negative emotion spilling from work into home life can actually make job problems worse, research shows. Mike Fisher took comfort in talking with his wife Julie about heavy stress on a previous job years ago. When a new boss was showering him with criticism, Julie would hear about it every night when... Oh, sorry, this is a quote again. So, it says, Mike Fisher took comfort in talking with his wife Julie about heavy stress on a previous job years ago. When a new boss was showering him with criticism, Julie will hear about it every night when I got home, he says. Miss Fisher admits she sometimes turned out, but she also listened and encouraged him. When Mr. Fisher developed high blood pressure and ulcers, she helped him decide to quit, telling him, "It's not worth it, life is too short," says Miss Fisher, who now works with her husband in their own business, Our Town America, a Tampa, Florida direct marketing company. Complaining becomes a problem when it goes on too long, says Patricia Pita, a Manhasset, New York, clinical psychologist. Most job troubles aren't easily resolved, yet the person who's in distress just wants to keep talking about it because they're feeling so uncomfortable. And before you know it, it's 10 p.m., she says. A negative mood can be contagious. Mary Osborne says that when her husband Nathan often came home frustrated and angry from a previous job several years ago, she sometimes felt like snapping at him. "You sometimes want to just say, 'Quit your job,'" said Miss Osborne, a San Diego blogger on family and faith. She made an effort to be empathetic, reminding herself that her husband had supported her during difficult times in the past, and her husband soon found a job he likes. Spouses often want to give advice. Kathy Murray, a former chief financial officer, used to respond to her husband's dog's complaints about his job years ago by telling him to network more or knock on more doors, says Miss Murray of Santa Ana, California. Mr. Murray says that that wasn't helpful. He respects his wife's skills, but she didn't understand his work as a financial product sales representative. I'd come home from work trying to figure out how to hold it together until the next paycheck, and instead of having a cheerleader, I'd have a coach, Mr. Murray says. He began treating alone to his man cave in the garage to watch TV. Miss Murray says she learned to stop giving advice and start listening to her husband with empathy. Mr. Murray says her support lent him confidence and helped him become successful on the job. There's an enormous temptation to step in and fix it somehow, when that is not what a maid wants, says Laura Doyle, a Newport Beach, California relationship coach whose book, The Surrendered Wife, helped Miss Murray change her behavior. Listening and simply saying, "I hear you," satisfies a spouse's deep need to be heard and understood, says Miss Doyle. Showing empathy doesn't mean you agree or that you're obligated to do anything different. It just means you get it. Feeling understood often helps people feel stronger or see new solutions. While research links unhappy marriages to increased anger at work, employees in happy marriages aren't as affected emotionally by negative work events, according to a 2015 research review of 85 studies by researchers at the University of Georgia. Brandon Tinney hated seeing his wife Miranda unhappy in a job at a manufacturing plant, says Mr. Tinney, president of Millicare, a commercial carpet and textile cleaning company in Omaha, Nebraska. He encouraged her to stick with it and you'll get through it, reassuring her that she wouldn't have to stay in the job for long. Mrs. Tinney says she was comforted. The experience motivated her to support him in buying his own business in 2012, and she later joined him there as chief executive. A spouse should ask a mate's permission before switching to a problem-solving role, says David Maxfield, a vice president at Vital Smarts, a Provo, Utah research and training firm, and co-author of 3 books on influencing others' behavior. Sometimes the spouse will say, "No, I have it all worked out," and sometimes they'll say, "Okay, that's exactly what I need," he says. Some spouses find themselves in the awkward position of wanting to side with the boss who is angering their mate. Doing so is likely to put the partner on the defensive. Happy couples cultivate an us against them mentality, says Joshua Coleman, co-chairman of the Council on Contemporary Families, a nonprofit research group. Attempted solutions should be delivered gently, such as, "I'm not sure you're hearing it in exactly the right way," says Dr. Coleman, author of The Marriage Makeover. Ask questions such as, "What do you think your boss was thinking?" or "What could cause him or her to do that?" Psychologists advise setting limits on time spent complaining. Recommendations vary from 5 to 30 minutes. A listening spouse should speak up when feeling overwhelmed or frustrated, Dr. Dr. Peta says. After work, people should avoid coming in right away and dumping on their mate, says Kathy Dawson, a Cleveland relationship coach. Take a few minutes to change clothes or relax. She also counsels couples to ask each other whether it is a good time to talk and to learn to describe problems briefly. It takes practice to get good at saying what's really bothering you in just a few words, she says. Okay, so I got interrupted. I forget where I was. Okay, so we're almost finished. This is actually very interesting, and this actually works not only with partners or couples, it actually works on the job. Someone comes in and complains, which is something I actually had earlier this morning. A gentleman came in and complained. You listen, you pay attention, you let them know you understand, but not just in a fake way. You truly let them know that you understand, because you are human too. You have problems too. You are a consumer as well. So just truly, honestly open your heart to let them know you're listening and paying attention. And even though you may not agree with their argument 100%, let them know that you understand. Okay, so anyway, so we're about done. So she also counsels couples to ask each other whether it is a good time to talk and to learn to describe problems briefly. It takes practice to get good at saying what's really bothering you in just a few words, she says. I know I read that. Just trying to get back into the groove. Okay. When Patrick and Annie Flaherty's relationship was strained by talk about work, Miss Dawson coached them to check in with each other before venting. At night, I can turn and look at him, or he'll look at me and say, "No business. I need an hour, and there's no penalty. I don't feel shut down, and he doesn't feel shut down," says Miss Flaherty, who works with her husband in a Kent, Ohio technology company they own. They often defer talking about issues to a weekly meeting they hold, usually on Sunday, and Miss Flaherty has learned to describe what is bothering her in just a few words rather than going on and on, which in the past caused Mr. Flaherty to fall silent and withdraw emotionally. Getting out for a run also helps. They meet after work on a path near their office, and Mr. Flaherty runs 6 miles, Miss Flaherty 3. Sometimes they stop for dinner or a beer afterward. By the time they get home, work stress has taken a back seat. I think that's awesome. I think that's an awesome article. And celebrating 60 years of Disneyland, a park that was ahead of its time. I wanted to read that. I went to Disneyland when I was 9 years old, a long time ago. Alright, so this concludes today's reading. to get videos in. But sometimes it is difficult for me. I'm not single. Shouldn't say that. Sometimes it is difficult for me. You know, I have kids, and sometimes the youngest one, the baby, he doesn't want to go to sleep until later, even though I have him on the bed. And then by the time he falls asleep, getting all drowsy, and then I just start putting ASMR videos and fall asleep myself, like yesterday, last night. Okay, well, that's all I have for today. I thank you so much for tuning in. I will see more videos posted in Spanish, and then I'll do videos in English as well, so you'll see both. I hope you have a very pleasant day tomorrow. But for right